Hello. Today is Thursday, and today is going to be an interesting one. You know, a lot of times the lives that I do are based on topics that I feel like I may even be an expert on. This is not one of those topics. So let's get Eric on.
The real expert here. Hey everybody, thanks for coming on. Eric,
Dr. Stanley.
how you doing?
Good, you?
Good.
Good to be here.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. It looks like I gotta either lower myself or raise this up, or else you guys are just gonna be looking at my chest here. I was saying usually the topics that I do are things that I feel like I'm close to an expert on, and this is not one of those topics for me. So I'm glad that you're on here. I kind of consider myself an expert on many things digital, but digital dentures is not one of them. You know, for me, my extent of digital dentures has been digital impressions, designing the teeth digitally in three-dimensional aspect based on the patient's face, printing an aspect of the teeth, but then or printing the teeth and then finishing everything else kind of the old school way. So I'm excited to see what you've got to show us today.
Yeah.
So we met through our friends at the Digital Dentistry Institute. I guess almost 2 years ago.
2 years ago. It'll be
Yeah.
2 years this August.
Yeah, that's right. Wow, that went by fast.
The first time I saw you speak and when you inspired me was at the Nobel Symposium in Miami. When you guys did.
Okay.
Yeah, it was you. Was it the analog versus digital concept of all on four, I believe?
Right. Yeah, it was like the West Coast team and the East Coast team, and
yeah.
East Coast totally kicked our ass because they had Sandeep, and yeah, he definitely owned me on that.
But on my side, it's been a pleasure to watch you, evolve yourself as a professional and everything that you're doing, and you do it with class, and your slides are always just truly beautiful and impeccable. All your videos, your passion to exceed excellence is inspiring. And this isn't an ego pump up, conversation. It's just true from the heart. And I think we all need that. And I think people out there need to know that and hear that message too, that we can all inspire each other. And whether you're at the highest level and an expert or just getting started, because I wouldn't be where I am today without people like you and other people that have inspired me to try to exceed excellence. Because when you go to these big symposiums and you see these 3-1 slides or these big 6-1 slides even, and the beautiful photography and the case presentation, the delivery, and it's really no different than professional athleticism.
Yeah.
Actors, professionals, we are our own brand in dentistry, and we motivate others to try to exceed patient excellence in everything that we do. So I really wanted to say that to you today, that you've inspired me, and especially with the lecture you gave out in British Columbia in November, and my girlfriend still talks about that. That Kyle, and it's like so good, and just the delivery. And so thank you for what you do in dentistry, Dr. Stanley. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks. Wow, that's really some nice words. And I'm glad that I can do anything to inspire people, because I definitely had and still do have my people that inspired me. And I think this is just like a waterfall that will eventually keep happening. And I know you and I both have a lot of followers that are young dentists or young denturists or young lab technicians. And I think that's what we're here to do, especially in our profession, is to inspire the next round, and hopefully they're better than us, and almost put us out of a job. But that's what will continue to happen in our profession. So for those people that are watching that don't know who you are, why don't you give us a little bit of your history?
Sure. So Name's Eric Kukucka. How you say that is if you think of the old European ladies that wear babushkas.
Babushkas.
But put
Yeah.
a K in front of it, and it's Kukucka. So it's pretty easy to say. So I'm a denturist. So what that is basically think of someone that specializes in removable prosthodontics. So full dentures, partial dentures, repairs, relines. We also do some fixed full mouth rehabilitation with all on 4, all on 6, or all on X as they're calling it these days. We have a collaborative. So what makes us unique is our collaborative approach with dental professionals throughout the industry in an interdisciplinary model. So
yeah, we had Susie on
saw that.
maybe last month or something. So that was great, I think, to kind of expose at least my followers to what a denturist is, because I didn't know for a long time.
And Susie,
because we don't have them here.
A colleague and a friend, and she's done amazing. I mean, I think she's done more conversions in all on 4s than all of us put together, probably.
Yeah, she's got a lot under her belt.
She's a star.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that's in a nutshell what a denturist is. And myself, I'm an international speaker, published author, key opinion leader for Ivoclar Vivadent, 3Shape, as well with Nobel Biocare. So too bad they canceled the symposium on us this year.
I know, that was going to be fun.
I was so disappointed. So, but yeah, I mean, I've been involved with the digital denture process since its inception, since 2014. So I was the first beta tester in North America as a denturist in 2014. Been part of product development of a lot of facets on both the 3Shape and the Ivoclar side, including the new Ivotion disc, which is a new monolithic denture that's actually made out of one solid block. So the teeth is made out of one solid material. So I was part of the product development team for that. Lectured at the IDS as well in Cologne, Germany, when we launched the multi-layer PMMA. Yeah, I've given over, I think now I'm up to 56 keynotes on digital denture technology, 5 countries, all that. So it's been a pleasure and a passion, and that's kind of my story. And I've been fascinated about teeth since I started and when I was in school in Toronto. And I just say this jokingly, it's like people might add Playboy pictures and stuff on their wall. I had denture posters on my wall, shamefully, but I've always kind of just had this fascination for teeth, and it's been my hobby. And that's why, a lot of people's like, why do you work so much, or why do you always, you're working, and that's all you do. And for me, it isn't work. And I know it's very much the same for you. And, you have a beautiful wife and a son at home. And I think that, of course, takes up your time. And I'm sure before all that, your involvement in dentistry was a lot more. And I mean, now even I watch your stories all the time, and you're flying out, given the keynote, you're flying home the same day a lot of the time, right? So your life has taken that 180 shift, and you've adapted and improvised and overcome to the new life that you're living. But
that was a big change.
And I don't have, I have a girlfriend that's super, super, super supportive, that lets me leave the house at 3:45 every morning and not come home till about 6 or 7. But so life changes, and this is my hobby, and it is what I am super, super passionate about. And I really always have been. And that's where it comes from. My passion for excellence and exceeding excellence has come from the drive of colleagues, and people like yourself, and to want to be better and spend the time, mind feeding on education and watching your lives. And is the opportunity to feed our minds, because I mean, could you imagine if I'm just plugging my phone in. If I told you 2 months ago, you know what, Dr. Stanley, you got to take 2 months off of work. You can't see any patients, can't work on your business. How's that sound? You say, I can't take 2 days off, right? So for those of you that are out there listening, this is totally unrelated to digital denture, but you should be spending this time, strategic thinking and feeding your mind and doing all those things that you always say you never have enough time to do in your business and in your personal life. But you should all be watching webinars and feeding your mind with dental knowledge and education, because when we do get back, to the new normal, I mean, that's a whole lecture conversation in itself of the new normal. But it will be different. And what are you going to do better? What are you going to adapt, improvise, and overcome? And I know we have a great mutual friend and colleague, the other Dr. Stanley, who,
Yep.
if those of you out there are not following, I mean, this Dr. Stanley is one to follow, but our other Dr. Stanley blows us all out of the water with 300,000
amazing guy.
followers, and one of the most inspirational, amazing, human beings. I think you can put it, for a lack of a better term of words. Follow Dr. Miguel Stanley, the slow dentistry concept, no half smiles, biological dentistry, and the White Clinic. I mean, he inspires you and I for sure.
Yeah.
And another guy that I saw in BC for the first time, and just, wow.
Yeah. He's electric. He's
crazy,
attractive from every point. Everyone wants to kind of, wow, you see him and how he speaks and his cases and his philosophies and just his humanistic, I don't even know if that's a word, but his humanistic feeling is electric.
Yeah.
So where do you want to start with this? Do you want to show a case? Do you want to start with maybe just concepts, or what are you thinking?
Why don't we start with why I feel this is sexy? And
okay,
I thought, I don't to show a whole case in general. What I'm going to talk about and show is the possibilities, the capabilities, and what makes this
great.
sexy.
Okay.
So I'm going to turn it. George has our tripod set up over here.
Oh, good. And I'm going to have a lot of questions throughout the time. And let me turn off the commenting real quick. So first question, before you even start.
Yeah.
Is that from one puck, or is that two different pieces that are glued together?
That denture you're seeing there is from two different pieces. We took that a couple of years ago, that photo.
Okay.
So that's a milled base and milled teeth, and then that's polymerized together, and then in what we call oversized milling process. And then it goes back in the mill, and the mill finishes everything. So you don't have to worry about any excess bonding material. Some areas that may have voids that'll, accumulate more plaque. And
nice.
So it's a really nice homogeneous, or an ideal interface between the teeth and the base.
Yep.
That was kind of the first workflow process was with carded manufacturer's teeth, which was the highest aesthetic, but it was not the most optimal workflow for efficiency. Also, it lacked some of the ideal strength capabilities that we strive for. And, this process was released in 2017 at the IDS and launched the oversized milling process. And then that's evolved. And, I hear constantly it's not there yet. You guys are dreaming. This doesn't exist. It does exist. There's over 1 million cases designed in 3Shape today. This technology we've been using here for 5 years.
Yeah.
So on a global scale, what's interesting though is with 1 million designs. I'll slide over. You can see me now in the frame.
A little bit.
With 1 million designs, only 1% of removable dentures that are done globally, which is 50 million a year, only 1% are digital. That's it. That's
still guided surgery. I think it's only 5%. And guided surgery's been out for almost 15 or so years. What was that?
Awesome. I think the evolution of digital denture technology is really still it's not the evolution per se, but the adaptation of the industry, and people are now starting to realize what the possibilities and capabilities of this technology are. And I think now with COVID, that's becoming even more relevant than ever before.
Sorry, guys.
Because you're just plugging it in.
You got a low battery here, so
Very good. Looks like
That's all right. We're informal.
So, I think that for those of you out there that are watching and listening, and this is all possible today. And the reason I put this slide together is because I like to say that today anything is possible. We can intraoral scan the edentulous arches. We can scan reference dentures. We can do immediates. And then you can bring that into the digital design. And why I really love digital technology as a whole, but digital dentures in particular, and I know it's the same for you, Dr. Stanley, is nobody's ever taken a picture of something they want to forget, right? You know, you look at the CBCT.
Except for maybe like an ex-girlfriend or something.
Maybe you put those in a file somewhere because you still might not want to forget some of them. but really and truly, that's what we're able to do now with this type of data acquisition, especially in immediate denture therapy. You know, when you have patients coming back and say, well, my teeth didn't look like that. Well, let me show you what your teeth actually did look like.
Right.
And, you know, you're a big smile design guy too. And I think, you know, having those types of photos and references and aligning all that data together, and it's just something that's so incredible. And when we talk about, you know, making it sexy, right? You see all these pictures of people holding Emax blocks or strawberries, and it's always crown and bridge and super high-end cosmetic and full arch rehabilitation, right? But why can't dentures be sexy? Right? And I think they are. And I think digital's helping make dentures sexy again and bringing sexy back, as one of my patients commented today. But, you know, it's not just digital removable that has to be sexy. I think removable as a whole is something that's been forgotten by many and often overlooked, of the quality of life that you can change in a person with something as simple as a removable prosthetic. So we kind of shot this photo inspired by Milos and some of those Emax pictures and stuff that people are posting.
Yeah.
And
the one thing, you know, about dentures in general, or removable in general, is it's kind of a lost art because many people aren't doing it as much, and it's difficult, and people that are good at it can get really good at it. I mean, my dad did a lot of removable, and he was always like, I don't need a ridge. I don't need anything. I'll make it have suction. I'm like, this is crazy. And Christian always says that the best removable doctors are oftentimes the best smile designers, because they're the ones that are used to having an open canvas and saying, okay, where do I put my central incisors? Where do I put my canines? What's the flare like? What's the dominance? How's the bite? So that's like, you know, the original smile design, I think.
It's so funny you say that, and I've been inspired by a lot of your lectures as well on the whole maxillofacial side of things and how you guys talk about that, you know, begin with the end in mind. And I talked about in my lecture last week that I did on immediate dentures, calling it begin with the end in mind, and explain on that program that's often forgotten by many is everything starts at the maxillary central incisor. Where do you want that to be? Facially, aesthetically, phonetically, functionally, right? And I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. And getting back to that dying art, that is one thing that is an industry issue globally, is finding good removable technicians. Now, does digital completely replace the best removable technicians? Absolutely not. But a lot of the concepts, digital denture technology is actually more powerful than most users even know what to do with it. Just like guided surgery, CBCC technologies, digital smile design, all those things have more potential than what we really know what to do with. So having said that, the possibilities and the capabilities of creating a bilateral balanced occlusion and group function digitally is far more, you can achieve that a lot more accurate digitally than you can analog. And when I say that, it's by training, it's by reproducibility, and it's by every single case attaining that bilateral balanced occlusion, right?
Well, you can kind of have the patient's head in your lab, or on your computer, so wherever you are. And I know for me, doing dentures and trying to get that perfect, you know, bilateral occlusion, etc., it's trial and error. And I think it's still trial and error digitally, and please correct me, because like I said, I'm not an expert in this. However, you change the tooth and check it. You don't have to put it back in the mouth, have the patient bite, see how everything is. You change it, you check it, you see it move, and you can make those, you can make your mistakes digitally, which I love.
Yep, Absolutely. And I think that now, you know, when we talk about digital, and dentures are one of the most mathematically correct prosthetic restorations made, because it does follow most principles from forefathers of Dr. Gerber, Dr. Deasy, Dr. Bonwell, Earl Pound. All these anatomy and physiologists and removable theorists have created the landmark and created these theories based on where teeth need to be placed for anatomical and physiological harmony.
Yeah.
Now that you don't have wax all over these models, or trying to look and see where your pencil lines are for being over the center of the ridge for maximum retention and stability, you have that digitally, and you can import that into a face scan. And you can look at the center of the ridge and merge the upper arch on and off, and merge the upper and lower teeth. And again, the possibilities and opportunities are endless. So, you know, that really does come to speak to with what you're saying with the dying art of removable prosthetics.
Yeah.
And, you know, getting to that other thing about can't be done, you know, Vincent van Gogh, right? If you hear a voice within you say you cannot paint, then by all means paint, and that voice will be silenced. And I want to give 3Shape a lot of credit for not giving up on what an intraoral scanner could do for removable prosthodontics. And today, you know, you can do full arch edentulous scans. Dr. Lucio LaRusso, I think, has over 400 published articles, many of them in the JPD. And this is all possible today. Now, are you getting a full border molded peripheral seal and following a functional closed mouth final impression, respecting the harmony of the neuromuscular activity during function? No. But you are creating a mucostatic impression, which will have less sore spots and will have an increased retention and stability. But you're not getting a peripheral border seal. But it's still possible. And we use this in immediates, which I'll get into in just a moment. But what's also possible is that a clinician, whether you're a denturist, prosthodontist, dentist, it doesn't much matter, a dental professional, you can take a wash impression inside an existing denture. You can render that digitally. You can then what we call scan, design, produce, and deliver into chair appointments. Appointment one,
Wow.
patient in with existing denture. We take a wash impression, scan that chair side, the intaglio, the facial, and the upper and the lower, scan the bite in the mouth, which really you're never able to do before conventionally because you're articulating with stone and plaster. Whether you use a Stratos or a Cavo, it doesn't much matter. You're still in an analog method recording that centric occlusion, and there is room for error. When you're recording that CR digitally, and I know you use intraoral scanning technology every day, and I'm sure it's improved the way that you do restorative dentistry and cosmetic dentistry.
Yeah.
And that's what we've noticed, a 78% decrease in post-operative adjustments since incorporating digital denture technology.
Wow, that's huge.
Increased production by 50%. Because I'm showing you a clinical side that saves 2 appointments, but on the lab side, what you're seeing here is we're receiving in our CAD/CAM department a digital file of the upper and lower arches with the reference of the existing denture and the centric occlusion. Then we're designing it, we're sending that file digitally to manufacturing, producing a product, and then delivering. So to be able to do that in the analog world, you have to bead and box the impressions, pour it up, trim it, sandpaper it down, then you got to articulate it, wait for that to set, then take everything apart, then start your model analysis, then put your wax on, then set, set each tooth by hand, put the wax gingiva, then carve it, then try it in. Oh, by the way, your midline's off.
You're bringing me back to dental school.
Take all 28 teeth off, Eric, and clean them all up and start over, because to move a midline, all 28 teeth or 24, depending on the scheme,
Yep.
have to move. Now, digitally, that takes 10 minutes. Go back to the software, move it, done, right? So, and in immediate dentures, it's the same thing. We do our scan, design, deliver concept, and we talk about this in all of our webinars, our scan, design, deliver. But when you look at immediate dentures, right, so now you have a mucostatic impression, you're respecting the true CR. If you have to open the bite, that's okay too.
Yeah, that was my question. If the existing denture or the existing teeth aren't at the correct VDO, can you explain how you guys go about that?
Yep. So 2 ways that we can go about that. So I'll just go back a slide. So what we would do in an instance like that. So 2 things that we can do. Excuse me. You could take your iOS scanner and you could actually 360 scan the existing denture and then export that as an STL. So let's say you do that for the upper and the lower. So look, you use the Lang's duplicator in school, right?
Yeah.
Double alginate, pour the cold cure acrylic, use that to take a wash impression, and that's your reference denture. But now you do that digitally by scanning it with an iOS or a lab scanner, exporting that file, you print that, and then if the borders are underextended or the bite's overclosed, you could build up the occlusion, underextend the borders or increase the extension of the borders, and then bring that into the operatory. So appointment 2 is now a closed mouth functional impression in a new centric relation. But now, excuse me, your armamentarium has teeth on it. It has a fairly good replication of the anatomy and physiology. So it's a custom impression tray basically with teeth on it.
Right.
That you
so if there is vertical dimension discrepancy, let's say, it just adds one more appointment.
Yep.
Okay.
And you could also, if your philosophy is to do Gothic arch tracing, that can be appointment 2 as well.
Okay.
Utilize these dentures as your initial preliminary impressions, and then you could do a closed mouth functional final impression with respect to with the Gothic arch tracer. So somebody's at the door there, so George, you're just going to leave it on standstill. I think it's fine, George. So thank you for that. So,
yeah, that's good.
So definitely with respect to if the BDO is far off or CR is even, patient's got a habitual class 3 that they've had the same denture for 25 years. And then, in an instance like that, you may want to do a therapeutic rehabilitation. So maybe they're overclosed by 15 millimeters. I mean, you're not going to open somebody 15 millimeters right off the bat. I mean, you know this in full arch rehabilitation and what you do all day, every day. You got to do that slowly. So, in a patient like that, maybe you put them in an interim transitional prosthesis where you only open at 5 or 7, and then you can make them a definitive prosthesis after they wear that for 6 to 9 months and rehabilitate the neuromuscular activity and so on and so forth. So, I think the possibilities and opportunities are endless, and you have to decide as a clinician, no different in cosmetic dentistry or FMR, is how am I going to do this rehabilitation, right? Maybe not every single case, that's an upper and lower FMR, you can start with the posterior teeth like you want to. It doesn't always work that way. And it's kind of the same with dentures. I mean, you have to use your knowledge and experience and based in your foundations and your principles, but not every case is going to be exactly the same.
Yeah.
And again, that's with respect to immediates. And, for us, you got these mobile teeth and you're taking alginate impressions and then the lab's pouring it up and they're calling you saying, oh, Dr. Stanley, the 2 centrals broke off. Do you want us to glue them back together or do you want to take another impression? Right?
I've been there.
And that's not an issue anymore. And also, I know there was a study done that said 80% of patients prefer a digital impression versus a conventional impression. I mean, how many patients you have come into your practice say, oh, I'm a gagger, before you even start? Right?
Yep.
It's like that's the preamble and the prerequisite.
Yeah, I'm a gagger. I can't open. I can't pay for anything. I don't have any time.
So I think especially with the terminal dentition patient, and again, whether that's because they got there from failing dentition or drug abuse or neglect, I mean, that's nor here nor there, but most of these patients have an instinct of fear, right? That false evidence appearing real. And I think with what you're able to do with smile design technology today, I think that eliminates a lot of that fear that's out there from patients. And when you can do that proof marketing and show them that proposal, it eliminates a lot of the fear. Then they get confident in that iOS impression. And I think so there's a lot more of the outside of how cool and sexy the technology is about how both clinically relevant it is, technically relevant, but psychologically relevant.
Yeah. Yeah, that really helps when you have those patients that are gaggers and you tell them that you don't have to use the goopy stuff to take an impression. It really helps.
Yeah.
Psychologically.
Yeah. So that's been huge. And, you know, I always talked about I was fascinated with teeth, right? And I think that, you know, everybody's, oh, all you talk about is digital. Well, I actually still like conventional stuff too every now and then. And I think just showing this rendering of what goes into making a beautiful aesthetic, just artificial carded denture tooth, you know, there's 80 plus years of innovation in science in carded denture teeth, and they've evolved immensely. So, you know, outside of the digital world, there's some beautiful teeth, the SR Finaris, the Dividend SPE. You know, these teeth were re-engineered, you know, by some master ceramists and master dental technicians to give them that more true to life look and appearance of natural teeth and that very cosmetic look with those reduced interproximal contacts, right? Because, you know, we say this in dentures or in crown and bridge, you don't like black triangles. Well, I don't like pink triangles.
Yeah.
Some of these denture teeth that have these massive interdental papillas, and it looks like someone's got you know, some rice in between their teeth or just a piece of food. And that shouldn't be that way. And so there's been a huge evolution in with respect to just conventional removable, but then now we get an evolution of the digital world with iMotion. And, you know, this is the first of its kind to actually have produced a one disc monolithic solution in conjunction with a software and an entire workflow. I will be honest, and I don't care if people from Ivoclar are listening. When I first saw this 2 years ago, I hated it. I said, well, where's the printing? You know, like, you brought me over to Liechtenstein to show me this? Like, everybody's printing right now. I'm like, you shouldn't even do this. Like, yeah, but it's been like 3.5 years of R&D on this project.
Yeah, that happens with a lot of companies, you know. Companies that I work with will show me stuff and I'll be like, you guys are really excited about this? Let me tell you what's really happening out there.
Yeah. But then there's also that other side of it. It's like, maybe I'm not seeing this the way I'm seeing it, or maybe they know something that I don't know, and we'll talk about that just a little bit about additive manufacturing once we finish this. But I will tell you, I'm glad that they stuck to what they believe in, because in my humble opinion, it's one of the most innovative processes, you know, currently today. And everybody says, you know, how do you guys get the arch form to
I'm at my parents' house. They actually still have a home phone.
I think that's the shipping and receiving. So, what makes it unique is the shell geometry. So this shell geometry is basically like a wave that goes through that puck, which defines where the white and the pink are. Okay, so that's inside the disc, and then that's translated inside the software. So I know it's a little hard to see on that small computer screen, but let me zoom in just for a second. So you can see,
oh yeah,
basically the top part and the lower part is the disc, and then that wave is that shell geometry. So you can move that and position that within the disc. And that's what allows you to set the geometry within that disc to give you that that unparalleled margin.
I see.
And this is all proprietary to Ivoclar and 3Shape. But what I think is misunderstood at times when you're looking at this is that what you're seeing here is the most digital workflow possible today in digital removal prosthodontics. Whether you're using an intraoral scanner or a lab scanner, but let's talk real digital. Intraoral scanner, sending that to the CAD cam. The CAD cam sending a file to the milling machine. You're putting one disc in the machine and you're taking one disc out. That is unparalleled efficiency. There's no bonding. There's no pouring acrylic and then backfilling and then, you know, remilling it. It's
how about finishing? After it comes out, you take it out of the milling machine.
So we did a time analysis. So in a production laboratory, you are looking at 7 to 10 minutes of finalization.
Okay.
If you want to make it a little bit more high end and really spend your time on the surface texture and your interproximal contacts and making all those margins be perfectly seamless, you're about 15 to 20 minutes.
Wow.
But the results that that we're achieving in this workflow in 7 to 10 minutes are incredible, because the dentures are coming out nearly high polished, right? You have a 0.5 millimeter burr that's doing the finalized finishing surface on both the intaglio and the basal surface, the buccal surfaces and the palatal surfaces, or the lingual surfaces on the mandible. So these things are coming out nearly polished.
So do you polish it or do you glaze it?
Yeah, so we don't glaze. Everything that we do, we pumice
Great.
and high shine.
And that's probably better for plaque accumulation, cleanliness, smell.
So like what from the all-on-4 world, all those cases that people glazed and then you see them a year out or 2 years out.
Right.
It's just, and unfortunately, just with respect to that, I mean, we do kind of know PMMA was never really designed to be fixed in the oral cavity 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
Now there are some, completely homogeneous PMMAs with injection molding, and milled PMMA is also, depending on the process, 100% homogeneous, so it's not porous.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing, is we know with these milled materials that it is biocompatible PMMA that we've been using for 80 plus years, and we know this technology. We know the science behind it. We know the clinical validations of how this material behaves, in the oral cavity. So no, what you're seeing here in this photo is just pumice and polishing, and of course some nice lighting to get a good
right.
picture. But in 7 to 10 minutes, you can have this high polished. And we'll kind of just conclude with this, that all this innovation, it's sexy, it's cool, it's efficient, but it's the patient that is who we are serving, right? Yes, it gives us a better workflow. Yes, it gives us higher quality. Yes, it gives us, the clinician, more predictability. But who is all that technology being engineered for at the end of the day?
Yeah, that's a patient.
Patient experience, patient expectation, patient comfort, patient ability to function, right? And that's our goal. And I know you subscribe to the school of thought, right? No half smack. And when we can do something like that in removable in 2 appointments,
yeah, that's nice.
I think that's sexy. And that is a milled monolithic denture, which was her interim denture, and then she's doing implants in the lower, and then she'll do a full upper denture as her rehabilitation. And this was, I'd say, I don't think ever in my career I'll ever get the chance to do a case like this. We actually did this case all pro bono, published in 5 different languages. If you're watching, you can check that out on Ivoclar Digital Reflect magazine. It's in English, German, Italian, French, and Spanish.
How old was this patient?
23.
Wow.
Yeah. So this was a case where an unfortunate situation of actually sexual harassment in the dental chair, which caused a lot of that fear.
And wow, how sad.
Yeah. When we first time we met her, her mom, and this is all, I have full rights to talk about this, so because we published this obviously, and
yeah,
Andrea's probably one of the bravest people you'll ever meet, but it wasn't like that in the beginning. When we first met, her mom had to be in at every appointment, and
for sure,
a very fearful situation. You talk about everything happens for a reason, and I'm more of, if it's meant to be, it's up to me, right? That's kind of my philosophy. But when you do look at everything happening for a reason, you look at Andrea's case. So Andrea was sent to me, being referred from a dentist, Dr. Pete Sidlikowski, local dentist, great friend of mine, 2 weeks before I went to Liechtenstein for my annual trip. And when I was in Liechtenstein, they said, we're looking for a young, beautiful patient that wears dentures to do some, some marketing with, and some communication pieces, and so on and so forth. And I pulled up my laptop and I showed them the pre-op photos, and I said, well, what do you think of her? Wow. Why? Right? Because me, in Europe, like, why does a 23-year-old need dentures? And,
right.
And I'm sure a lot of people that are not in dentistry, or even people in dentistry, is like, wow, 23? And that happened? And she was willing to put herself out there? So, so we kind of did this co-marketing thing and collaborated. And when I got back, I sat down with Andrea and her mom, and I just said, I have an opportunity for you. and I want to talk to you about this. And I said, but you're going to have to be okay with showing your case to the world. I said, this isn't just like a Windsor thing. I said, you're going to get, showcased on screens and magazines. And she said, if I can help one person overcome the fear of doing something about their smile and their teeth, this is worth it for me. So myself, Dr. Mark Shuren, and Pete, we actually did all this pro bono. So she's got a lower all-on-4 and an upper full denture, but the initial rehabilitation was just full denture treatment.
Mm-hmm.
We are big believers in immediate function, but just with respect to the workflow on the case and how we wanted to document it, we did it as a delayed phase. But, all that aside, when you can do this and change someone's life.
Wow.
And that's just her interim, and I'm not being derogatory to Andrea, but that's sexy to be able to do that digitally and to change someone's life. And that was actually her mom that made the comment on the post this morning. So Leslie, if you're out there listening, again, I'm getting a little, I get teary-eyed a little bit because I watched.
Yeah, me too.
Went through, and if you watch the videos of her story, it's just so emotional. And her mom said, "Bringing sexy back," and the appreciation from this family, from what we were able to do, it's pretty crazy. So I really love showing this case. I never get tired of it either, because there's so many messages in this case to people out there. And I mean, you see it on these forums. A lot of these denture patients are treated with no dignity, really. It's like, it's just a denture. You'll get used to it. Oh, so what? Well, that's how it's supposed to be. I hear it all the time. You see, there's some Facebook groups of these denture outreaches that have 100,000 people on.
Yeah, one of my denture patients actually just recently asked me to give like a lecture on one of those Facebook groups. It's funny that you say that.
Mm-hmm. And that's what it is. And so let's get back to our.
So a few questions came up. And so I want to talk about those. Someone said, and I think I know the answer to this, do you have to have a printer or I guess a milling machine, or could I scan it and send it to an external lab to produce?
Absolutely. So the nice thing about digital technology and digital dentures, and you can get in as little or as much as you want. You actually don't even need a scanner if you don't want.
Yeah.
You can turn the lights on, bud. You don't want to buy a scanner and you want to keep doing, if you like doing bite blocks and custom trays and all those things, you can send your bite block to the lab and they will then render that digitally, right? So how you get in doesn't change. Now you can do it better and faster, like we just showed with the intraoral scanning and all those types of things, but you could just find a dental lab, a digital dental lab that's currently doing digital denture technology and incorporate that. You don't need to change anything that you're doing. So now if you want to do more in-house and you want to start producing, and sure, you can buy a printer and print your own try-ins and do your own designs. But I mean, I think you know this as well as I do, is sometimes leaving the right things to the right experts and working as a collaborative team with that communication between clinician and technician.
Yeah.
Important. And I think that especially now with this post-COVID situation that we're all going to go back to, is we really need to start valuing our time and how is our time going to be best spent? And is it going to be one patient an hour in the chair and 15 minutes in between for proper sterilization and so on and so forth? So how do you want to best spend your time? And maybe you want to go home earlier. And I think a lot of people are realizing that too, is like, I like being home with my family and my wife and my kids and so on and so forth. So I don't want to sit at work and print stuff and just send it to the lab. And that comment of the lab, I think you got to really partner with a lab that you respect and say, my technician or my team, right? We're all a team. And the more that you as a clinician or a dentist can communicate with your lab, you'd be very surprised on the things that you can learn from a technician.
I've learned a lot of things from technicians. And this was ingrained into me early with my first mentor, Pascal Magne, because his brother is one of the most renowned technicians in the world, ceramists in the world, Michel Magne. But he, since we were in dental school, was like your technician is part of your team, you know, rely on your technician. And so I've been lucky to have that ingrained in me. And now we have our technician, Paolo Battistella, in-house at our office. And gosh, what an increase in the relationship there from his growth as well and our growth. You know, his growth is, and you can understand this because you're a denturist and can actually work in the mouth, but most technicians can't actually work in the mouth. And so they never get to see their cases in the mouth. They may get to see a photo if they're working with a dentist that does photography, but they don't get to see it in the mouth. And so for Paolo to start to see his veneers and his implant crowns and his all-in-fours, etc., in the mouth and make adjustments and come back, and gosh, he has just skyrocketed because of that relationship, that close relationship.
I think you said it well too, is like photography and like, okay, you don't have to have the same setups like we have with Strobe Pros and all this stuff. And if you're not putting, you know, and if you want to get it to that level and you want to strive for that excellence, then absolutely. But just even giving your technician a photograph of a high smile, like, you know better than anybody, you know, it's like, that is so invaluable. And I think if we can get that message out there today of like, just start taking a few more pictures. And
I remember, I think it was Dr. Monnier also, when we were like, what is the first thing we should buy when we get out of dental school? And it was like a camera. And so what we actually did is we bought our cameras inside dental school so that we could play with it in dental school, get good, so that when we got out, we weren't fumbling around with, you know, paying patients that want you to do things quickly. So I always give that recommendation. And I think that's such a good thing that you said that, is photography is not just for Instagram and for lecturing, and more than likely it's not for that. What it's for is looking back at your case you did 3 years ago that you thought was really good, and now looking at it and saying, look at all the shit that I did wrong, or maybe didn't do wrong, but I could have improved. Or that technique that was really popular then and was kind of state of the art then, look what we're doing now. And gosh, I have so many cases that I still show them, but I used to show them as saying like, look how good I am. And now it's like, look at all the mistakes that I made.
How funny. I was cleaning up, one of the things I've been doing in COVID was cleaning up the 134,000 photos in my iPhoto album. And like, you go back 2 years, right? And you're like, I thought that was a good picture. I thought that was good work. I thought, like, and it's true. You're only as good as your next case, right?
Yep.
And we always want to have to be better, and we can, and we're our own worst critic, right? And
I think one thing too that I wasn't doing at the beginning of my career was documenting every case. What I was doing was, I'm going to document the pretty cases, and these are going to be the ones that I can show. And what was good was that at least I was documenting the pretty cases, because oftentimes those turned into disasters. And thank God I kept documenting them, because now I have them. I've learned from them. Now a lot of people have learned from them because I show all of my mistakes. But yeah, photography really gets you there. We've got more questions.
Love it.
Okay.
I'm gonna turn my off.
Are there different color combinations of teeth and gingiva? Great question.
Great question. So, yep, absolutely. So in the two-step process, so there's 9 shades in the A to D shade.
Okay.
A1, A2, A3, 3.5, D2, D3, B1, B2. I think I named them all close, or C1 and C3, I believe. So how they decided what 9 shades were going to be the utilized shades were based on obviously analytics and numbers in the market, and which 9 shades ranked the best and most used. BL3, sorry, was the one I was missing. So so those are the 9 available 2 shades, and in the pink shades there's 4 shades. So you have what's called a preference shade, which is the gold standard, similar to Lucitone 199, a very nice fibered material. Then you have the what's called the pink V, so it's a orange, kind of an orangish tinge. It's a pink but very veined. So there's a lot of veins and fibers.
Oh, Nelson's on, our friend Nelson from Brazil.
Hey, Dr. Silva.
Yeah, I had him on early in my lives, talking about intraoral scanning and all this stuff. So great to have you back, Nelson. Interesting. You talk about. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go.
I was gonna say, interesting that you talk about kind of an orange tint, because I don't like to say that in front of patients, but I learned this from Christian Coachman and his pink composite from, gosh, I can't remember who makes that we have. It's
Annex Dent?
Yes, right. It's Annex Dent, yeah. So it's Christian's one that he kind of designed. But I find that the orange tint actually works for the most patients. It's the most kind of universal. And he taught me this by saying, if you have no idea, start with the orange and go from there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a little tip we can pass on.
It's then the other shade, the orange-ish shade, is called the 34V, and that shade was actually engineered to be utilized in conjunction with composites. So it's actually, this shade itself originated in a material or a company called Candelor, which is a Swiss company, which is owned by Ivoclar. But the 34V was a shade that they used for in conjunction with intrinsic staining. And then what they found with the utilization of their composite, which is SR Nexco material, solvent resistant. And Nexco actually stands for next generation composite, for those of you that didn't know that about Nexco. Nice. Which you can use to stain teeth and those types of things. But that 34V has it's less opacious, so it also allows the composite to really give its opportunity to shine. And then the other shade is a pink, which is a non-fibered shade, which I actually don't like whatsoever. I think dentures should always have some formality of fiber in it. So those are the 4 shades for the oversize or the 2-step process. In the Ivotion, the initial market release launch will be limited shades. I'm not at liberty to say that on the live since it's
Is this on the market yet? The Ivotion? It's not.
Release. So the release was, so we launched, I was so fortunate and privileged to do the launch in Chicago when we unveiled it.
February?
Yep, in February. And the launch was to be unveiled to the market in May, mid-May. Then COVID-19 happened. It really altered a lot of our internal testing and validation too that we were doing because we couldn't get fit. So all the production of Ivoclar teeth and discs with respect to PMMA is done in Italy, in the Turns, Italy. So they were the first to bye-bye.
Yeah.
So the expected launch is June. So the relaunch is expected in June. Based on production and things like that. So it is coming, and it will be available, to my knowledge, in June. Okay,
so in the Ivotion, which is the one piece, that will have some set of combinations.
Yep.
Right?
So
you can't necessarily say that yet. What you were talking about before with the 9 different shades and the 4 different gingivas?
Yep.
That's for which?
So that's Ivoclar's oversized milling process, or even you can do what's a standard mill. So mill the base to final, mill the teeth to final, and bond them together in place. So you can definitely do all that with respect to the 2-step process. So Ivotion is the 1 disc, and then Ivoclar has, and you don't have to have a PM7 to do milled dentures. You can do it in a Roland, an Armand Gerbach. To mill the base, mill the teeth. Now, the oversized process is proprietary and patent to Ivoclar Mill, as is the Ivotion is also a patented process.
Right. What do you guys bond the 2 materials together with?
Great. That's actually my favorite question.
I'm a bonding
everybody thinks that
lover.
It's cold cure or auto polymerized PMMA. So it is an auto polymerized. So it's called IvoBase CAD bond.
Okay.
So the IvoBase CAD bond is an auto polymerizing PMMA material, but it has a special chemical composition that allows the exothermic heat to stay under 100 degrees Celsius for 15 minutes. Most auto polymerizing PMMAs reach 120 degrees Celsius at the 7 to 8 minute point. So this gives the technician a significant amount of working time, especially if you're milling the 2 arches to final and you're cleaning all the excess bond material. So imagine having 15 minutes of working time, about 10 to 12 minutes of working time before the polymerization process starts. But also, since you don't have that exothermic reaction exceeding 100 degrees Celsius, there's a lot less chance of the actual arch swelling or that intimacy between the polymerization process of the base and the tooth arch being 100% polymerized together. And in the validation of the technical specs, all the fractures are cohesive fractures. So there's nothing.
Wow.
Yeah. So this CAD bond material, because that's also what the reduced exothermic temperature allows, is creates a really, really nice cohesive and intimate bond.
Wow, that's really cool. And I think for people that maybe don't understand forces or don't do research on this stuff, that's basically saying that once they're bonded together, it's behaving like one unit.
Yep. And we saw that as well in some of our the validations that were done with respect to milling the whole arch. Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, you can still mill a base and put carded teeth in it, and then that's kind of your workflow. You can mill the arch in segments. So you can mill it in 2 segments, 3 segments, or the whole arch.
Okay.
So interesting. We found in the studies that if you milled it in 2 segments, it actually fractured easier than it did if it was 3 segments. Reason for that, of course, is that where do most fractures happen in complete dentures? Midline.
Right down the center, yeah.
So we personally prefer milling an entire arch because then you really get that monolithic strength of the tooth arch in conjunction with the denture base, and then it becomes one monolithic structure. So
okay, so we've got more questions here.
Let's go.
For the iVotion, or I guess let's talk about both. Let's talk about it, and instead of using, I guess, company names, we'll use like a 1-piece or a 2-piece.
Yep.
Okay. For a 2-piece or 1-piece, what is the milling time?
So that's totally different. So I can't say the exact number yet. I do know the number, but I can't. So it's definitely, we can do it in under 2 hours in iVotion. That I can actually say. Now, when you're doing 2 pieces, you're in most instances, depending on your strategy, you're 2.5 to 3 hours of milling time. And in some instances, even more, depending on your mill, your feed rate, your spindle strategy, so on and so forth. But then you still have to take that out, sandblast it, create chemical retention as well with some monomer, bond it together, clean all that out, so on and so forth. So there's a lot of manual steps which go into that. Now, if you're doing that oversized process I was talking about, where it half mills the base, half mills the teeth, bond it together, the mill finishes it, well, now you have a lot less working time because all you're doing is just bonding the arch in and letting the mill do all the margin cleaning and everything like that.
So I wasn't understanding that correctly. Okay, so for that, you mill both, you bond it together, send it back to the mill, and it kind of finishes everything.
Yep.
That's really interesting. So that adds more time to the end, but gets you better finishing.
Better finish. The monolithic strength, the cleansability of all the margins, also with respect to how the arch is seating inside the base. Because when you're freehand cementing,
doing this
cementation process, even if you got a putty matrix and you wrap elastic around it, and you think you're doing a service to yourself, there is some inaccuracies in occlusion that way. So this also has a paramount with respect to occlusion. Okay,
we've got 2 minutes left, so I'm gonna end this and restart it, but I want to look at some of these questions. Okay, so when I come back, they're going to say what software is needed in order to start designing in-house. So let's try to remember that question. Yeah. The other question is, how do you polymerize the milled base and teeth together? I guess you already did that. Okay, so let's remember what software is needed. So I'm going to end this. We'll come back and we'll keep going.
Got it.
We're back. Let's wait for Eric to come back on and we'll finish answering all the questions about digital dentures here. Let's see. Bring him in. Thank you everybody for coming back. Here's Eric.
Okay, Thanks
Hey.
for coming back.
Hey.
We're getting everybody heading
Give me
back
1
on.
second. I just gotta shut the door. Sorry.
Sure. So everybody, make sure to put your comments in the comment box, and I'll make sure to try to get to all of them. And thanks for coming back. I've already got more questions that I want to ask. Who here is still doing a lot of dentures? If you're doing a lot of dentures, say something. Because I feel like oftentimes many of us push towards fixed, especially if you're following me, you're probably into implants. So the question that we had before, software.
So the software that I showed is the 3Shape software. And with respect to the iVotion and that oversized process that I was talking about, that's proprietary to Ivoclar and 3Shape. But there's a lot of good softwares out there. Exocad has a denture module, 3Shape. Those are basically your two main players.
Yeah.
In my humble opinion, I mean, 3Shape's the most seasoned. Avident's got a nice software. Dentsply Sirona has a software as well through their in-lab.
Okay.
So there's a lot of systems out there. And I'm not here, you know, to say this is the best and this is all you should buy. And if you don't do this, then it's not going to be good. You know, there's a lot to be said about a lot of different companies. But I will say, in my personal and professional opinion from experience, is the Ivoclar and 3Shape workflow is the most seasoned. It's the most well thought out. And it's that true systematic approach between the clinician and the technician. So basically think of it starting from the clinical process, which is from the late 80s in the biofunctional prosthetic system. So the BPS concept of removable dentures turned digital. So you have a validated clinical workflow with armamentarium and materials. And then you have your technical workflow with armamentarium and materials, and then the milling machine. So everything's cohesive as an entire system.
Yeah, that's nice whenever you have, you know, and I'm kind of company agnostic to everything, but there's certain companies that I use because it makes it more streamlined, right? And I know that companies have to make money and they have to have proprietary stuff, of course, but it is nice when things are open,
Yep.
right? You can use this scanner, you can use this software, you can use this puck or this material. And I think that the market is going towards that, and people are starting to really require that from companies. And I think a big event in dentistry was kind of when Dentsply Sirona and the CEREC world went a little more open. Mm-hmm. That was a big thing in the market, saying like, okay, they're getting a lot of, because people were saying like, I'm not going to use CEREC because it doesn't work with my scanner, or the mill doesn't work with that, or with my CT, or whatever it was. So yeah, it's nice when you can use whatever material you have.
Yeah,
you know, that's always, of course, nice. But I understand that these companies innovate and have to make money and have to have proprietary stuff. So you are using 3Shape so you're acquiring with 3Shape, you're designing with 3Shape, and then you're milling with Ivoclar.
Yeah. Now, to your comments, and to bounce on that with respect to software and the process. So the nice thing about 3Shape and even Ivoclar, so the Ivoclar so the tooth libraries, right? So there's specific libraries in there. You can print those. So if you like to 3D print your dentures, or you want to mill the base and print the teeth, or mill the teeth, print the base, you do have those options. So
that was my next question. So keep going.
So you can, you know, mix and match and do different things in your workflow. You could design a case with the Ivoclar teeth and print a shade A1 monoblock denture in crown and bridge material, right? So you got and maybe use that for converting your all-on-4, right? So you're not entirely limited, and that's where I said way earlier in our conversation about the opportunities and possibilities of what you can do are endless.
So you talked a lot about milling.
Yep.
And, you know, printing is very popular. I feel like milling was first, as far as, you know, when CAD CAM came in, we were milling everything. And then printing was like, woo, we can print now. in digital dentures, what's the positives and negatives?
So that's a great question, and I try to be as politically correct as possible, but also scientifically correct, because there are a lot of people, people that just like to say stuff is like, oh yeah, I do this. Oh yeah, it's great, it works, and I like science and numbers and facts.
Same.
As well as my own validations too, though, right? And then
Right, yeah, you need your own personal experience. I think that's personal experience says a lot, and common sense says a lot.
Yeah. So I will always start this out with saying exactly how I say it every time. 3D printing will be the future of dentures one day.
Okay.
Whoever will figure out how to additively manufacture something in one piece, so print the teeth, print the base, that is as biocompatible as today's high impact industrial produced PMMA materials, will win.
Right.
That's a fact.
Yeah. No, and that's going to be with everything, is when we can make it strong enough, pretty enough, and biologically sound, we print everything.
Yeah.
Because printing is, well, it depends on the level that you're at, but generally faster. So like if you're talking about a high-end mill and a high-end printer, the high-end printer will probably do it faster.
For sure.
Strength is always a concern with printing. You know, with milling, we have the pucks are put under pressure and heat, and those particles are so close together, which makes it better for polishing, makes it stronger. You know, like when I'm doing full arch implant restorations, like an FP1 type where I don't even have gingiva, I can't print those. I have to mill those based on strength. But yeah, it's a good point that you say when someone can do that, printing will be the case.
Yeah, and so with respect to printing, I mean, I think there was a big innovation that was released at the International Digital Denture Symposium in Atlanta this September, and it was the Lucitone print material. So Dentsply and Carbon had a collaboration to basically make this Lucitone print, which has some very impressive scientific data with respect to flexural strength and what's called a 4D polymer. So the 4D polymer that's inside this material actually increases the strength in the oral cavity once it's achieved. I think
over time it increases the strength.
Yeah.
Interesting. And this is just for the gingival aspect?
Correct.
Or this is also, okay.
So gingiva only. And I think where I personally, and I just want to be very clear, is I have nothing against this workflow or this system. I'm speaking truly out of experience and what I know is possible. The workflow currently today is they still have to bond in individual carded manufacturers' teeth. So that becomes an issue, you know. So okay, fine, you could print 10 or 15 bases in an hour or 2 hours.
Yeah.
Well, then you have to clean those with, you know, isopropyl, and then you have to, you know, go through the whole post-processing process. And then I believe their indications for use is to bond, if I'm not mistaken, I saw on 2 webinars, was 2 teeth at a time. So now you're taking all that time into consideration. And I think where it's also, in my humble opinion, falling short is in single arch restoration. So when you're limited to carded manufacturers' teeth that are prefabricated, you can't optimize and adjust that occlusion digitally to the antagonist. You're only limited by the morphology of that tooth. Now, when you're milling an arch or even printing an arch of teeth, but when you're doing an arch of teeth digitally, you can morph and shape that molar, bicuspid, any of those teeth in any which way you want to give you, just like in crown and bridge, that optimal antagonist, bilateral balance, group function occlusion. So I think there's more innovations to come. I think things will get better. But with respect to additive manufacturing, they are leading the way with their technology in the base material. But there's other additive manufacturers, which we have a NextDent 5100 printer, 3D systems. They have great materials. We use them for printing our try-ins, surgical guides, models, those types of things. But with respect to what we've seen in some of the denture materials, it's the behavior in the oral cavity that's been very disappointing. The accuracy of the fits in all systems, they're scientifically stating between a 92 to 97% accuracy based on trigonometry to the scans. In milling, we're seeing as high as 99. And
that can be the difference between seeing little lines on the teeth that show the printing process and not seeing it in the milk process, right?
So that, but I'm speaking more respectively to the intimacy and the cohesiveness if you were to layer the initial scan versus the final product. So that same thing that we have in conventional polymerization shrinkage, right? Why we have to put a post stamp. So we are finding in some of the studies that I've seen in the JPD that milled is still outranking additive manufacturing with respect to the fit. And I think also the performance of how this photopolymerized material is adhering to saliva. So what we've seen is that the suction effectiveness and cohesiveness is not the identical suction effectiveness and cohesiveness that we see in PMMA, not just milled PMMA, but true polymethyl methacrylate.
Yeah.
And I'm not a scientist, but I'm attributing that to the material almost having that hydrophobic type of behavior, as opposed to the PMMA, which is very hydrophilic. And if you know, you leave denture in a cup of water and you go back in a week and it's gone. Right. So we do know that now there, and I always leave this topic by saying this: it is the future, but we as a profession need far more evidence-based science on these type of evaluations. Now, I'm going to be working with actually University of Western Australia and a few other academias on some research with respect to comparing all different types of manufacturing, including monolithic and then the two-step and then printing and all the different types of printing and those types of things. So because I myself want to see the data and I want to have it my own scientific, and there's other people that are doing their own studies, but when I can control the manufacturing in my own environment, then I can attest to what I'm doing.
Yeah, and that's the best kind of research too, is when it's done by one person, one lab, tested by one person. It's much more valid. Let's there were some questions here. Please write your questions in the question box at the bottom, because otherwise I lose it. Does it work with implants too, is the question.
So with respect to does it work with implants too, so absolutely. In the software, you could put attachments in the software to block out. So let's say you're doing an implant overdenture on 2 locators or Novalock or CM lock, any attachments per se. You can create blockout. You can actually import those attachments as a DME, data media exchange, for those of you that don't know what DME stands for, inside the software. So you could actually import a locator abutment. You can import the cap. You can import the housing. You can incorporate blockout. Now, you can't physically adhere it in the software. You still either have to print a model. So maybe you could use an intraoral scanner with scan bodies, print a model. You could literally do the whole conversion in the lab. I personally, for overdenture, prefer a chairside pickup because of the compression of the soft tissue and allowing that denture to settle itself into place. Our methodology on that, actually, we leave the patient in the non-retentive nylon for 7 days. And once that settles in, then we will incorporate the increased retention. So we allow that denture really to settle in the environment of the soft tissue without full, retentiveness.
So it's just kind of sitting over that and not really engaging it. And you're letting the soft tissue and the musculature kind of relax a little bit and do what it's going to do. And then you'll go back in once that's set. You said about a week?
7 days, yep.
And then you go back in and make it retentive.
Yep.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Let's go to our next question. What burr do you use when making adjustments?
So what burr do we use when making adjustments? We use a carbide burr. So again, any burrs that you use in PMMA, these discs are made, I went and grabbed some while we were off. They're made of polymethyl methacrylate. So the Lucitone 199, this is IVO-based material or IVO cap. It's polymethyl methacrylate. So to touch more on that oversize, so you see how it's like still rough everywhere?
Yep.
And then the teeth are also, they're rough. So they're not final finished. So that then, it's not the same case, but then gets bonded like this.
Okay.
And this whole thing and all the bond can get all over the teeth and all over the buccal. That goes back in the mill and it just cleans it off.
And then when you take that out, all you do is polish pretty much.
Yep. So here's one bonded, so you can still see all the rough around the borders.
Oh yeah.
And the teeth, you can still see like this. Let me try to put it in the light there, so you can see they're not finished.
Right.
And that's how it gets
So this
bonded.
at this point, it's with a pretty large burr
in the machine.
in the milling machine.
So it's most of the large roughing, like these huge holes,
Yeah.
that's done with a 5mm burr. Now
Okay.
the 5mm burr, unfortunately, actually only runs, depending on the strategy, anywhere between 18 seconds and 42 seconds, because PMMA is hard on your spindle. So you imagine at the feed rate that some of these mills are doing and driving a 5mm burr into PMMA, right. It's pretty tiresome. So a bulk of it gets done with the 5mm, and then a remainder with a 2.5, and then it'll go down to the 1.5, the 1.0, and then the 0.5.
Okay, cool. Let's see. Is it possible to apply Dr. Abe's SEMCD technique for the digital workflow? That is like another language for me. I don't know what that means.
So Dr. Abe. So
Okay.
Dr. Abe is, I would say, the world's foremost authority on suction denture concepts, since he created his own suction concept, which is called SEMCD, which stands for Suction Effective Complete Mandibular Denture, which he's already published 2 books. I think they're both here. But this is the Bible.
Okay.
Complete removable. So this is the first edition, and then the new one, which is called the Professional, which has class 2 and 3 in it. So if you're at home
I've seen that book before.
Yeah. So if you're at home doing nothing, Quintessence published this. You should read it. It'll teach you a lot about removable. Also, I am the 32nd instructor of SEMCD globally. So you have to go to Tokyo twice to train under Dr. Abe. And if you meet all the requirements, then you can take your instructor's exam and then get certified to teach. Last year, one of the keynotes that I gave was at the JPD, which is the Japan Plate Denture JPDA Denture Association, on my work of incorporating suction concept with digital.
Okay.
Yes, it's absolutely possible. The concept was created. Sorry.
Yes, you're back.
My apologies.
That's okay. Sometimes people call and it
yeah, that's exactly it. So the SEMCD concept in conjunction with digital is possible. I was actually speaking to Dr. Abe this morning, and he's asked me to do a webinar on SEMCD with digital. So follow me on Instagram, the Denture Center Online Education, so denturecenter.ca. It's the links actually in my bio for all of our webinars. So hope that if you really want to feed your mind with removal education, I do a webinar every week. I do a Q&A every Friday, and we do a more intimate paid webinar on Wednesdays. But the Mondays are free. So in 2 weeks, I will be doing that SEMCD one. So to answer the question, yes, it's absolutely possible.
Okay, cool. There was a question about what the cost is on, I'm guessing, these materials. I'm guessing for the Ivation. You probably can't say Ivation. You probably can't say yet.
Yeah,
has that been released?
Yeah, so the name Ivation is released. So actually, if you go on YouTube and type Ivation Chicago, you'll see the media release, which features me in the YouTube video talking about the innovation and the concept. So I encourage you actually to watch that video. You'll see the vice president of 3Shape, the director from Ivoclar, the CEO from Ivoclar, myself, and master dental technician Lee Culp talking about this innovation. Yeah, so a good friend of mine as well taught me a lot of what I know. So the cost, I actually can't say, and that's going to be released.
Can you say the cost of the 2-part ones?
Yep. So the 2-part in the United States, I believe the pink is either 45 or 55. And the tooth material, I believe for the monochromatic, I believe is 80. And the polychromatic, I believe, is 100. So please don't quote me. You can go on ivoclar.com, lab shop, all the prices are on there. And then the bond material, but remember, for that disc of tooth, you're getting 2 arches. In some instances, we could even fit 3 arches in one disc.
Okay.
So if it's 80, you're 40. And if it's 100, you're 50. per arch.
Right.
And then the bond
Okay.
material, you could do 2 dentures per capsule. And those, I believe, are $7 or $8 US. Comes in a
Okay.
10-pack.
Okay. And then there were a few questions about partials.
Yep. So partials can be done digitally today. There's actually over 600, as of 2019, over 650,000 removable partial frameworks designed on 3Shape. So that's a pretty astounding number.
So it's designed digitally, and then is it? 'Cause I've seen some things where they
SLS.
they print. If I'm saying this correctly, they print wax patterns, and then that's taken into metal. So
Yep,
can you explain how the
so-
digital
yep.
workflow is coming into
Yeah,
partials?
so a few methodologies with respect to digital frameworks. So in its infancy, that was the process. So it was a digital design and then printing out of casting wax. So specific
Yeah.
chemical composition of additive manufacturing for the lost wax technique. So they're either printing a model and then duplicating that model to then do the casting to make the framework, and then fitting that to the printed model or the master model. Now, that doesn't have to be in TrollScan. You could send your lab, an alginate impression that you poured up, and they can do that way, where they'll scan that, create the cast, so on and so forth. Now, the other innovation now is SLS, so selective laser sintering. One of the companies that pioneered this was 3D RPD. They're 3D RPD. They're based in Montreal. We've been working with them for about 5 years. We shied away for about a year and a half because it wasn't working in its infancy. But their technology today is one of the most impressive workflows and technology that we use with respect to selective laser sintering of chrome cobalt. The increase in strength as well is anywhere between 6 to 8 times of the stress on the active clasps.
Wow.
Because it's all sintered as one piece, and you're not doing a lock wax technique and not getting that homogeneous metal all the way through the casting, right? So there are some studies that were done by the University of McGill. So I'm talking based on evidence-based science, not just words out of my mouth. And you can see also the strength of those frameworks have improved. And I will say I've had one break, and that was because the patient stepped on it. But what was incredible was we had the whole entire file saved digitally, as did they on their database. And in 2 days, we had a new framework sent to us. And what was incredible,
that's showing the value of the digital workflow.
I did that case conventionally with an alginate impression. And what blew me away was I took a new alginate and I fit the framework onto that alginate, and it fit perfectly, which is nearly unheard of with castings.
Yeah.
So that to me is what really sold me on that technology. And also getting back to that data preservation, which I didn't even mention once yet today, surprisingly. Data preservation of removable prosthetics is probably the biggest advantage of digital dentures, because most people don't like doing dentures for their patients. And when they get a happy one, everybody's jumping up and down. It's like, man, she's happy. She didn't call. Man, what if you lost it? Could you do that again conventionally? Could you nail it? Doesn't matter who you are.
Yeah.
It will never be identical.
Yeah, well, that's one of the main things about the digital workflow is, like, you could apply that idea to every nook and corner of dentistry. It can be as simple as, you have beautiful teeth now. God forbid anything ever happens to you. You get periodontal disease, you get in a car accident, you get punched in the face. We can give you back the same shape and contour of your beautiful teeth now for the rest of your life. Or, implant provisionals, right? And those can break if they're designed incorrectly or whatever, something bites on something crazy. Yeah, here, mill another one, put it in, it's going to fit exactly the same.
Yep.
As long as you didn't adjust too much occlusion in the mouth or something. Yeah, you can really use that digital aspect to, like what Coachman says, is kind of copy-paste dentistry.
Exactly.
You printed you printed or milled this denture, you broke it, print another one. By the time the patient comes back in, they come back in, you hand them a new one. Well, they hand you the money first, but then you hand them a new one.
Well, on that last year, we actually we had 5 patients that lost their dentures. One of them was a jet ski accident. Somebody was talking about it on a webinar. they're like, oh, the Eric Kukucka shipped the denture to Florida, and that's a true story. So, guy was on his jet ski and just hit a huge wave and just lost it. Right? So within 48 hours, from Canada to the United States, was a finished, trimmed and polished milled denture delivered to a dentist office, because we're not just sending them to their house.
Right.
And the denture was delivered with no adjustments or any post-operative complications.
Wow.
That's to cool. me is impressive, because that happens to that guy on a Monday. He's probably not getting teeth till Friday or 2 weeks, depending on how busy the practice is in the lab.
Yeah.
So on. It could be 3
if
weeks.
they had the old impressions, or if the lab works over the weekend, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. Wow. That really, that's almost a good finish to today, is how that aspect of the digital workflow allows the patient to have a better experience, have a patient live their life, which is, what this is all about. So we'll end on well, maybe two questions.
Mm-hmm.
One question was, when, in your crystal ball, when do you think printing will surpass milling? How far away do you think we are?
2 to 5 years.
Yeah, I think
that's
good.
My humble opinion.
Yeah, I like to think in innovation. I like to think in IDSs. So you'd say 2 to 3 IDSs. Right?
If I think I actually, my predictions is they're skipping this year.
Yeah, probably.
Because
we're gonna have to cancel our booth.
You can host it virtually. You'll probably sell more anyway.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So any first of all, thanks for coming today.
Thanks for having me.
Super. I learned a lot, and I'm sure everyone else did. Any advice for people that, I have a lot of young followers too, like, let's say, new dentists, new denturists, new lab technicians that want to get into this? Any advice for them?
Start mind feeding. Sit in webinars, not just mine. Sit in webinars, go online, start understanding what a DME is, what an STL is, what a CAM output is. All of these, what does the word additive manufacturing mean? What is SLS? What is DLP, right? All these things that you're going to hear in lingo when you're out in the industry and you start communicating with your lab. So that's what you should be doing now. And then when you get back to practice, you need to start today. You need to start this today, because this is the way that the world's going, and this new normal that we're living in, it will never be the same. And when we talk about reducing appointments, the cleanliness and the sterility and the workflow and everything that I'm talking about, working from home and digital communication, think of team viewing with your dental technician in your lab, or your team if it's in-house. We wouldn't team view, but you team view with your team and look at the design. No, move that lateral 0.5 millimeter, move the midline. Didn't you see that patient picture? This new normal, as unfortunate as this pandemic has been, it's horrible. It's actually created some really amazing aspects of what we do daily, and it will change dentistry for the better. I really truly believe that. Not financially in the beginning, because we're all suffering. Everybody.
Right.
We all are.
Yeah.
But what it has allowed us to do is, my favorite line is, adapt, improvise, and overcome. Mm-hmm. And that's what all of you out there, you're a young dentist, you're a denturist, you're a lab technician listening. Start today. Start today. Today's Friday. It's 1:30 Eastern Standard. It's 10:30 PST.
Mm-hmm.
Start now. I want you to come on my live in 30 minutes on Facebook, where I'm answering all the Q&A that doesn't get answered in my webinars. Join my webinars every week. Follow what Kyle's doing, because just because it's digital dentistry. It's not just digital dentures. You need to know what a DICOM file is, and a CBCT, and how to merge all these things, and printing a surgical guide, and guided surgery, and so on and so forth. It is a language in itself.
It's true.
So
or you're going to be left behind.
Start today. You have no excuse. Don't watch Netflix today. Instead of watching 3 episodes of your favorite show, my business coach, JT Fox, he calls it Brokeflix. But yeah, I'm not here to besmirch TV. But I would say to you, if you're a young dentist out there, don't watch Netflix tonight or tomorrow. What you have planned, go read a book.
Yeah,
that's my advice. I'm here every day at 4:30 in the morning. I don't
Hope you're getting enough sleep.
6 hours.
Okay, that can work. We're good. Today has been super, super cool.
Loved it.
Definitely inspired, you know, the new crop of dentists and denturists and dental technicians coming out of the woodwork. So thanks for coming. Thanks for spending
Thanks
the
for having
time.
me.
For those of you that aren't following Eric, make sure to follow him. He is a leader in this field, very well respected. So
Thanks.
big hug from LA, and hope to see you in person sometime soon.
Me too, buddy. And thanks for inspiring me. And guys, keep following Kyle and Dr. Stanley. I'll call you Kyle. But thank you for having me, because you're sharing my passion with your followers and inspiring others. But you inspired me, and you continue to inspire me. And I can't wait till the world really gets to see what you've been working on behind the scenes, because that, my friend, is I just got goosebumps. No joke. You know. So keep doing your thing. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks. See you later, Eric.
Take care.
Bye.
Thanks a lot.